Welcome to the official Colts podcast. I'm Jeffrey Gorman. Today, joined by JJ Stankevitz only. Lara Overton on assignment this morning. She will be back next week. JJ, boy, oh boy, it's kind of... I'm glad you're sitting on a couch to start this official podcast. Let's get it out right now. The elephant in the room is one of the most disappointing losses in a long time for a Colts team, and I'm comparing this one going back to 2020 in the playoff game up in Buffalo, led by Phillip Rivers, a high offense day and stuff like this.
That's a good point.
Kind of a comparison like that, but disappointment. I want to start there because that one was a heartbreaker.
I thought about that, Jeffrey, of like, where does this one kind of rank? Excuse me. And I thought about the 2021 loss to the Jaguars, right?
Okay.
But that game, you just got beat. There wasn't we beat ourselves, we had these critical mistakes and critical moments. That was just you got boat raced by a team that had one win that year, right? Mm-hmm. So I think actually that Buffalo game is a good comparison because you were right there with the Bills to win a playoff game in Buffalo. Biggest game the Colts have played in years in that game. And it came down to a couple of mistakes in that game. Missed field goal. What was the Kamoko Ture?
Right, offside.
Yeah. So that probably is a good comparison. But just in terms of the gut punch nature of that game, I think about that Jacksonville game. Because I think if the Colts win this game against Denver, they are cruising to the playoffs. Right. Cruising. And maybe it's not over Denver. Maybe it's over the Chargers. Who knows? But they are in really good position. And now the division is gone. The Texans clinched. You have a very narrow but still possible path to the playoffs.
Yeah, we're going to get to that too, and it is possible.
But you had it in your control, and the plays we're going to be thinking about for a long time are going to be Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball before the goal line. You're going to be thinking about the double pass. You're going to be thinking about Marvin Mims' 61-yard punt return. Those are the plays that are the reasons why we're sitting here right now being the playoffs are unlikely at this point.
First time since 2007 for a Colts team to have an opponent under 200 yards and lose the game.
Yeah.
Since 2007. That kind of shows you what that afternoon in Denver was all about, because let's just go over this thing. You talked about the Taylor drop at the goal line. Where does that set the tone after that point? In your opinion, you were there, you were in the stadium as far as setting a tone. We all saw it and wow, scratching his head. Hey, we all miss a stop sign now and again. You know what I mean? We all turn on red sometimes when we're not supposed to. That's kind of what I equate it to. It has, it's a heavy degree of, boy, we needed that one. But that's a professional who does that for a living, had a brain, sort of a thing. But the tone after that, we saw it because, boy, oh boy, they start rattling off 24 straight points. Welcome to the NFL. You know?
I don't want to belabor the whole, the mistake part of it, because Jonathan Taylor took accountability for it.
Sure did.
He left no room for excuses. He left no room for explanations. It was just, I screwed up. It won't happen again. It never happened before. So he kind of left it there. So I'm going to leave it there. But I do think, to kind of contextualize it, being up in that press box in Denver, that crowd was dead. That they went into that game, that the Broncos team, every fan in that stand wearing orange and blue, this is the biggest Broncos game since Peyton Manning won him a Super Bowl. Well, since the defense won him a Super Bowl, and Peyton, let's be honest, Peyton's kind of
JJ right saying
there.
that.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton won the Super Bowl. That defense was,
sure.
But regardless, that was the biggest game that city had experienced since 2016, and they were falling flat on their face in that game. Bo Nix looked overwhelmed and overmatched. Anthony Richardson was punishing them on the ground, and then you get Jonathan Taylor kind of, he was maybe not as efficient as he was early in the game, but the Colts are doing that thing where they're pounding it, and expecting one to get broken, and bam, there he goes. And that crowd was just... The life got sucked out of that place when he crossed the goal line.
Right.
But then they splashed the replay up on the video board at Mile High, and the fans.
Do you hear that moan? Do you hear
that? You hear that murmur from the crowd of ooh, okay, hold on a second. And then they keep showing it in the crowd. The crowd's trying to will it into existence, right?
Yeah.
And then when the official comes out and says the runner dropped the ball before the goal line, it's out of the end zone for a touchback, place goes nuts. They just scored a touchdown. And while that didn't turn the game to Denver, because the Colts were able to get a punt on their next possession. The defense held up. They gave the offense a lot of chances. What it did was it meant the Colts didn't have momentum.
Yeah.
So then kind of no team had it. And then when Denver got it, was on the Mims punt return that set up the go-ahead touchdown. And then when they got it for good was on the Benito, the double pass.
Where does the let's talk about it, because this is another professional and highly paid and great at his craft. The Pittman fumble. I mean, that also you're talking about.
The more I look at that one, the more I just want to say that was a good play by PJ Locke.
Great play.
The guy stuck his helmet right in where the ball was. Pittman's not a guy who's known for having ball security issues with the ball in his hands. I think you give credit. You know, those guys get paid too, type thing. I'm not worried about that one so much. But the thing that stunk about it was the way that it came in the game. Like the flow of the game at that point was like, you get a completion, okay, you get ahead of the sticks, you're going to get a first down, bam, ball's out. Denver gets it back.
Yep.
And that was another gut punch right there, because Denver then they get a field goal out of that. They bring it to 13-10. Again, the defense does a great job.
Sure.
Like sudden change, they were off the field for one play. And then, because that was after the cross interception. So you get this momentum from the cross pick. You're thinking, okay, we get a first down, we go down, we get some points here. We're in really good shape still. And then you get that. The defense holds up really well right there. But ultimately, like the short fields, the sudden changes, it just wound up being way too much to overcome.
JJ, what does Alec Pierce mean to this offense?
Great
the reason I'm bringing this up is he was out. He's in concussion protocol. Saying our prayers for Alec that he's okay, ready to roll. But what does that mean for this offense? Because obviously we see A.D. Mitchell getting more reps and such like that. Alec Pierce in training camp, we were saying, boy, it's going to be a competition and everything. This team, in my opinion, changes when 14 isn't on the field.
I completely agree. I think that's a really good point, and one that I've thought about a little bit more after this game, is that losing Alec for the entire second half, I think really impacted this offense. And it's not just that, he is your downfield threat, right? But this year, Alec Pierce has been the guy who, when you throw it up to him, I kind of expect him to come down with it more than anyone on this team. And that's been proven over even on that ball where he got the concussion on, where it's that deep shot into the end zone, that ball's in the air and I see it's going to 14. I'm expecting him to come down with it.
For sure.
In a way that, you expect you want to see A.D. Mitchell make plays, Michael Pittman, those guys. Josh Downs has made some of those plays this year. But when that ball's in the air to Alec, I'm thinking he's going to catch it.
Absolutely.
And to take that out of the offense in the second half, that guy who, when you need a play, when the Colts needed a play against the Patriots, who did they throw the ball to? Alec Pierce. Taking that guy out of this offense, I think, did have an impact. And it compresses things, makes it a lot harder on Anthony Richardson. And, Denver can play coverage differently when you don't have the threat. I saw Patrick Surtain lined up over Alec Pierce a lot in this game, which tells me Denver said, we don't want 14 to beat us downfield. We're going to put the best cornerback in the NFL over him and just take him away. That's a sign of respect. But when you take that guy off the field, you can do so much more with your defense, with Patrick Surtain, with your coverages, that I think we saw really impact things
overall.
in the second half.
No big mystery. They stayed away from Surtain's side of the field for the majority of this. It's not.
And then the one time they threw it, he got an interception.
Right. So I want to zero in on Anthony Richardson. Boy, oh boy, playing a great first half the way they did. You talk about what that 20-7 lead would have been had that touchdown counted, and the momentum. Give me your overall on the big fella. What did you like about what he did? What are some things that you saw in the second half? Because you got goose-egged in the second half on the road. It's usually a tough hill to climb.
Yeah, a couple things on this that I've been thinking about. One is, I think the game got away from the Colts in the second half. Obviously, after the JT fumble at the goal line, the offense kind of took a bit of a step back, and it was tough for them to come back from that. Having said that, I think you want Anthony Richardson to be able to pivot. And, okay, if we got to throw to win right now, because Denver's not letting us run it, we're getting holding penalties on running plays, you want Five to be able to get there. But right now, at this stage in his career, I think it's also okay that he's not there. This is not a red flag, warning lights that he is not there yet. He's still a very young quarterback. He just started his, 13th game in the NFL. That is okay. I am not worried about that. But what I've been thinking about the most after this game, because, playoffs are not done, but you start thinking about, this is usually a time where you start thinking a little more big picture. I think Anthony Richardson, since he's returned from being benched, has absolutely earned another opportunity to go be this team's starting quarterback in 2025. Whether he has to compete for it or it's handed to him next year, I think he's earned that opportunity to, at the very least, say, you're going to have a chance, and a really good one, to go be our starting quarterback next year. Because I think the strides that he's made and the identity that this offense has found with him since he's returned from being benched has been much better than where it was prior. It's been more sustainable. They've leaned into him as a runner more. He's running with a lot more conviction. He's throwing with more conviction. And I know it doesn't show up in the box score, but I think he's shown me enough. Just if you kind of take it globally and you don't necessarily look at just the stats, but you just kind of how does it feel out there? I think he's earned that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, obviously, you have someone of his talent, and you want to get, keep him in the pool, as they say, learning to swim in this NFL waters. It's like I'm excited about that sort of thing. These next 3 games, though, when we talked about it, we talked about it last week and say, you want a must win. Same mentality, these next 3 games, all in, let everything go, because we're going to get to the playoff picture in a minute, but I'm just talking about the mentality of that, and we're going to find out about it tomorrow. You're especially going to find out about it talking to the players more, so that's a heartbreaker. Is it tough to come back from, or is it no? We keep this thing flowing, and we beat 3 teams that, no disrespect, aren't playoff caliber teams.
They got 11 losses.
Yeah. So I'm saying, what's your take on that locker room and being able to stay focused and do the detail, not into 2025, but really making a push and hopefully having the Chargers collapse?
You got a lot of guys who are under contract for next year who are going to be back on this team, and I think those are the guys who are going to need to talk. They're going to need to be thinking about like pride and their spot on this team next year, and that's what you're playing for. But more than anything, and I thought Joe Wrights and Rick Venturi did a good job talking about this on Colts Roundtable Live yesterday. It's like you're playing for pride, and the season is not going the way you wanted it to. That loss was gutting. It was frustrating. It was debilitating. But how do you come back from it? And if you're going to play with some pride, you're going to go out and you're going to beat the Titans. You're going to beat the Giants. You're going to beat the Jaguars. You're going to finish the season 9-8. May not be where you wanted it to be, but you go 9-8. You have a winning season. You think about what you need to do better next year and how you can build on it. What you don't want to see happen is the cratering. Like I think we kind of saw that in 2022, where there were guys in that locker room. There were veterans who played with a lot of pride. I think about Ryan Kelly, DeForest Buckner, those guys down the stretch who are fighting through whatever you accumulate through the season, and still playing well that year. But that season just kind of got off the rails, right? You don't want to see anything close to that over these final 3 games, and I don't think Shane Steichen's going to let that happen. Sure. I don't think guys like Zaire Franklin, Buckner, Kelly, Quentin Nelson, these guys are not going to let that happen. But you also want to help out, show the young guys. Like, this sucks right now. Yeah. This sucks. But we got 3 games left. There are no guaranteed opportunities in the NFL. We got to go out and play with some pride. And I want to see, like, the leaders and the captains on that team really take over this week and come out and, I'd love to see this Colts team just kind of comfortably beat the Titans and show everyone, hey, you know what? Yeah, this isn't the season we wanted, but we can still finish it the way that we want to finish it.
And possibly find yourself in a playoffs atmosphere in 3 weeks like that. But more importantly, like you said, setting a foundation. A young, talented quarterback comes in like that and changes an organization. That's Anthony Richardson. So all eyes will be on the quarterback this year and next year. But, boy, we talked a lot of offense today. Let's give some love to that defense that went up to Denver in the thin air up there and really, had a hot team putting a lot of points on the board. But, as far as Bo Nix and the Sean Payton-led offense. But, boy, oh boy, on the defensive side of the ball, you get 3 turnovers on that, among other things like that. There's some names that we got to give them attaboys and pats on the back. I want to start with the difference that DeForest Buckner makes in a football game. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but go ahead.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He's having such a good season, and it's a shame that he's probably not really in that Pro Bowl conversation because he missed some time. But what he's done every time he's taken the field this year has been incredible. And, excuse me, that he is a difference maker for this defense. We see it, the way that the Colts defended the run in this game. Estime, McLaughlin, Williams, they didn't do anything. I think they averaged 3 yards a carry. They got shut down. Denver could not get anything when they handed the ball off in this game. And then on the back end, you talk about a game for Sammy Womack. Like, gets a pick, he gets a PBU. Excuse me, boy. He is a great game on the back end. You're seeing more strides from Nick Cross. Jalen Jones had a bit of a tough time early with a penalty, but he came back. He had a really nice PBU in this game. And then Zaire Franklin, I know he maybe wanted that one on Adkins' back, but the pick he had was awesome. Some of the tackles he made in this game are awesome. Guys are going to miss tackles every now and then. Those other guys get paid too. Not worried about Z at all in that he leads the NFL in tackles. He's fine. He's having another really good season, a Pro Bowl type season. That defense, though, Jeffrey, they just play collectively better than I think they've played all year. And I thought that's why you saw Denver. Their longest drive is 54 yards in this game. They could not move the ball. And I think that's why this one stings so much, too, when you kind of dial it back, is had the Colts gone up 20-7, I don't see a world where Denver puts up more than 21 points in that game.
Agreed.
I don't see a world where they are able to move the ball consistently. Maybe they get, one short field off of a Marvin Mims punt return or something like that. Maybe that one still happens, but I don't think they score 2 touchdowns. When the Colts offense can kind of play keep away a little bit with a 13-point lead, I don't think Denver's able to sustain a 70-yard drive, a 59-yard drive, any of those things in this game. Because Knicks was erratic, they couldn't run the ball, and the Colts are keeping a lid on their downfield passing game. So those 3 things in concert meant I really don't think Denver was going to put up 21 points in this game.
Good luck to them. Hey, They did what they did. They found a way to win. I'm zeroing in on some defensive players. Where does Nick Cross rank in the AFC South? Where does he rank in the AFC, for that matter, as far as top safeties in the league? Kid has been playing his tail off for the last couple of years right now. And I'll tell you what, another big momentum changer, a huge interception against the Broncos.
Yeah, he's having a good season. I mean, just a straight-up good season. And that... I was thinking about this driving in. It was 2 of the biggest questions coming into this year that I had about specific players who were, maybe we're not talking about rookies here, but it was about Nick Cross, it was about Alec Pierce. What are the Colts going to get out of these 2 guys? And you've got really good seasons out of both of those players. Cross has shown he is a starting safety. He is a good starting safety in the NFL. He's physical, making plays on the ball with these interceptions. And then, obviously, Alec Pierce, it stinks that he's in the concussion protocol because he no longer qualifies for the NFL lead in yards per reception, but at 22.2 yards per reception, or 22 or 7.
Did he? Somebody has a higher.
He doesn't have enough receptions.
Doesn't have. Okay, that's what.
So, but I mean, if Alec continued and he was able to play the whole season, he probably would lead the NFL in yards per reception. Regardless of whether he does or doesn't, though, we can say Alec Pierce had a good season this year.
Right.
We can say Nick Cross had a good season. So getting those out of those performances out of those 2 guys is encouraging going into next year when both those guys are going to be back, and I would think you would expect both those guys to be starters on this team next year.
How about Big Grove? Got his big mid up there and stopped the 3rd down and stuff like that. It's just Grover Stewart being Grover Stewart. I'm nitpicking some plays, but it was all afternoon where we totally were just one up in these Broncos, and obviously 31-13 final.
Yeah. I mean, we don't talk about Grove enough.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy. Buck and Grove in the middle there, they bossed that entire game. And yeah, I mean, for the defense to let up fewer than 200 yards and to lose by 18 points, that's tough. That is a really tough one to swallow.
That one was because of the depth of what that meant, and we can go back to the Green Bay game earlier, the Jacksonville first one that we spoke of, and those heartbreakers like this. But there is still some hope, and I want to talk about giving some hope.
All right, let's talk about it.
Because hey, JJ, the NFL's a squirrely place. It really is. There's 3 games left. We have a 15% or so chance to make the playoffs, but some things need to happen. So listen, we're all out there. It's a huge game at Lucas Oil Stadium against the Titans. Then you go to New York, and then you got Jacksonville. You need to run the table, so get us in playoff mode. I know it's tough, but get us there and how we do that.
All right, so it starts with winning out. You go 3-0. You at least put some heat on the LA Chargers. They're the team you're chasing now. You're not really chasing the Broncos. Yes, if Denver loses out and you win out, Denver has the head-to-head tiebreaker. Now, okay, here I'm trying to figure out where to go with this first. Let's start with the Chargers. The Chargers are 8-6. They just got boat raced at home by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost 40-17. If the Denver Broncos beat the Chargers, that game's at SoFi Stadium
on Thursday night.
This week. That game's at SoFi where the Chargers just lost by 23 points. If Denver goes in and wins that game and the Colts beat the Titans. Now you're talking about just a one-game gap, because guess what? The Colts will own every tiebreaker over the Chargers. In head-to-head, if there are multiple teams involved, the Colts will own the tiebreaker based on conference record. So that means the Heat's on the Chargers to win one of their last two games. They would need to win both of their last two games if they lose this game to Denver. So the Chargers finish the season, though. They got a kind of a pillowy soft end of the season. They go to New England, they go to the Raiders. Those are both road games. So, bit of chance there. But those are, let's be frank, those are two of the worst teams in the AFC.
That's going to be
the Patriots and the Raiders. So if there's any shot at the Colts making the playoffs, the Chargers probably got to lose on Thursday night to the Broncos.
Okay.
The other route here, the one that is more difficult to thread the needle on. And look, there are a lot of detours that the Colts got to follow right now. But the Colts have to win out. All these are with the Colts winning out. Here's how the Colts can still make the playoffs at 9-8 with the Broncos going 9-8. A third team has to go 9-8. So let's say the Broncos have to lose out. So Broncos lose on Thursday. They lose on the road to the Bengals. They lose at home to the Chiefs to end the season. Not impossible to envision based on how Denver kind of played against the Colts in that game. If that happens, the Colts go 9-8. Obviously, if it's just the Colts and Broncos at 9-8, Broncos make it.
Head-to-head, sure.
But say the Cincinnati Bengals. So they beat the Broncos in that stretch. Let's say the Bengals win out. That means the Bengals are 9-8. The Broncos are 9-8. The Colts are 9-8. The Colts make the playoffs.
Why? How's that? Because you got Denver. Explain that one.
It goes to conference record as the tiebreaker, the top tiebreaker, because the Colts have not played Cincinnati.
Yeah, right.
So Denver for Denver to do that, they would have to have wins over, and I don't think the Broncos have played the Bengals this year either. They played the Ravens. So So that's why, is that Denver would not have wins over the Colts and the Bengals. The Bengals have not played the Colts. So it goes to conference record tiebreaker, which the Colts, if they win out, they will have a better conference record than the Broncos and the Bengals.
And there's 9-8 Broncos and there's 9-8 Colts, and the Colts are...
The same, by the way, goes for if the Dolphins were to bump up to 9-8, or if it's Broncos, Chargers, Colts, the Colts would, which is possible, not unlikely, but possible. Actually, if it's Broncos, Chargers, Colts, the Colts would get the 6th seed.
Wow.
So a lot would have to happen here, like a lot. But it is not over yet. And I think the thing that if you're still rooting for this, which I totally understand, by the way, if like you're a Colts fan and you're just like, I can't get my head around this yet. I totally get it. But it's my job to kind of look at this stuff and kind of be aware of it. So if you're looking at this Thursday night game, you probably want the Broncos to win.
Yeah, you got to cheer the Broncos
Because now you put the heat on the Chargers. And look, if the Chargers beat the Patriots, you go and you beat the Titans and the Giants, you go into Week 18, there's a chance that the Colts are kicking off against the Jags at 4:25 to play at the same time as the Chargers, because the NFL might want those games playing at the same time. So if the Colts go beat you want to have you want those games kicking off at the same time. So the Chargers game means something, the Colts game means something, and we could be really scoreboard watching that game, Chargers in Las Vegas. That stranger things have happened.
Absolutely.
In 2021,
Absolutely.
The Pittsburgh Steelers went into the final week of the season being like, there's no way the Colts are losing to the Jaguars. Right? And they snuck into the playoffs.
Payback.
Stranger things can happen, man.
Absolutely.
Stranger things can happen.
And I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you do want to find out what the latest is of playoff chances, follow JJ on Twitter X, if you will, at JJ Stankevitz. And of course, you can read him on Colts.com and watch him as well. Keep us updated the next 3 weeks, because we keep winning. Everybody's going to be asking. That's the bottom line. Here's the deal. Win. That's what you have to do. Most important thing to do, you win. You go into Lucas Oil Stadium, you take care of business this week, you go on the road, come back to Lucas, take care of business. So it is. There's still a slight chance, but this crazy NFL, JJ, I'm really optimistic, and I hope that Shane Steichen's in the back right now telling his guys, hey, we got to play with our pants on fire, because anything can happen in this NFL. We have to have a 3-game winning streak to really put a cherry on this season. Obviously, you said it earlier, like Joe Wright had said, you want to finish with a winning record record. You want to finish on a high note, but at the same time, don't forget, you can get into the dance. And if you have a chip in a chair, anything can happen in the playoffs.
I mean, and look, like I understand if you don't want to be optimistic. If you're watching this,
people
and you're
are disappointed.
I don't want to hear this. You absolutely. That's how you should feel right now. You should be disappointed. I'm just gonna say don't just pack it in yet. If we get to week 18 and the Colts are sitting there at 8-8, and the Chargers are sitting there at 9-7, just it could mean something.
Let it fly.
And maybe you're sitting there at home watching this or listening to this in your car or whatever, and you're thinking, does it really matter if the Colts make the playoffs at 9-8? Does it feel like you back in and you go to Buffalo, or you go to Pittsburgh or you go to whatever it might be? But it does matter. It does matter to the 53 guys on this team.
Sure.
And it matters to the coaches. It matters to the front office. And that it'll count for something if you do make the playoffs.
It's a big if.
But the odds are very low.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. They're very low. A lot has to happen. But don't pack it in just yet.
Okay, time for the homer portion of this. Who wants to play?
Wasn't that just the homer portion of this? What are we doing?
I'm going deeper than that. Listen, if you have a 3-game winning streak and you're going into the playoffs with a drive because the Chargers are helping you somehow, who wants to play Anthony Richardson in the Colts offense right there on a 3-game hot streak? I'm just saying, if you want to find some optimism, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any team that makes the playoffs is going to be a tough opponent.
Yeah, it is. And going on the road, like you said, to potentially Buffalo or something. But
yeah, I think Buffalo's the best team in the NFL. So that would be tough. I think Buffalo, though. Let me put it this way: I don't think Buffalo's scared of any team in the NFL. They just went into Detroit and won 48-42. I mean, I don't think Buffalo would be scared of any team coming into their house.
Okay, let's flip the switch because I don't want to talk about the AFC right now, but we can talk about the NFC, about who we think over there. If I take away Philly and I take away Detroit, I take them away. Mm-hmm. Who am I still leery of a team that can come out of the NFC?
Green Bay.
Okay.
Green Bay.
Jordan Love and the boys.
Have you seen those stats about Jordan Love during Toyotathon?
What was it?
Google Jordan Love Toyotathon. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Is it?
How good he is during Toyotathon. He's got like 25 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. This makes no sense. This means absolutely nothing. Right. But since we're on a Colts podcast talking about the Packers, I might as well bring up his stats during Toyotathon.
Has Toyota hired him yet?
They should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you come up with a stat? I'm not asking.
Okay, but I kind of like the Packers.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing. Their defense is really good.
Yeah.
They're kind of coming on strong.
What about Sammy Darnold? What about Minnesota?
You know what? Minnesota's fun.
Yeah.
Minnesota. I think they're going to have a good defense. That NFC, man, it is. We're not even talking about Washington with Jaden Daniels maybe rolling into the playoffs.
Ooh.
Tampa, all of a sudden, just speaking of the Chargers, how Tampa went in and won that game. That's one of the more impressive wins this year against a Chargers defense that's really good to put up 40 on them.
Baker Mayfield, man, say what you will about it.
There are some good teams in the NFC. And, while we're talking about the Colts trying to sneak into the playoffs as a 7 seed, there's not a single team in the NFC that's going to sneak into the playoffs.
Right.
Those are teams that are tuned up. Just to zoom out a little bit, how funny is the NFL that a year ago we're looking at the AFC and you're looking at Allen, Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow, Herbert, Lawrence, Tua. You're like, my gosh, how are you Stroud coming off last year? My gosh, how are we going to compete in this conference? And now the AFC looks a little bit weaker. Maybe they got the best team in Buffalo, but then you go over to the NFC and you're like, juggernaut. I think Philly might be the best team in the NFC right now because all those injuries to Detroit. Detroit, though, they're a juggernaut on offense. Philly's a great team. The Vikings are a great team. The Packers are a great team. You got Washington coming on strong. Tampa looks really good. And all of a sudden, here come the LA Rams with Sean McVay, potentially out of the West. That NFC is loaded in a way that we thought the AFC was going to be. So never assume you know a lot about how a season's going to go, about the strengths of a team, of a conference, of a division, because it can flip real quick.
I remember, I don't remember well. I shouldn't say this. Boy, I'm getting old. But there was a certain play that Jake Plummer completed a touchdown pass for the Cardinals that sprung an upset in Week 16.
1997.
And allowed the Colts to get the number 1 overall pick, and obviously Peyton Manning. So, like, anything can happen is my point at the NFL, especially over the course of 3 games, which is a marathon. So I like your optimism and staying huff, but at the end of the day, boy, you're getting my juices flowing because nothing beats playoff football. And now we're talking NFC and we're talking about AFC and stuff, but that's going to be coming up in the weeks. I hope we do talk a lot of playoffs through that, whether the Colts are part of it or not. I want you, please, to do this. I talked about the Give Us Hope section there when it comes to the playoffs. But, JJ, just foundationally speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, I want some names, and Colts fans, you're going to know them, but just give me a handful of names that you're encouraged about the foundation of young players. I know Quentin Nelson is a great foundation piece here, but I'm not talking about Q. I'm not talking about Zaire Franklin right now. Some young foundational pieces to look forward to because 2025 is right around the corner. Obviously, we got to get through 2024 and this playoff season, but I'm saying, like, next year, foundationally speaking.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about Anthony Richardson and how I think he probably deserves that next shot. Josh Downs is right up there. You got a really good left tackle in Bernard Ryman.
Nice.
I think you've seen some good things out of Matt Gonzalez. So, you've got young tackles on either side that I think you should feel pretty good about. Defensively speaking, I think you've seen some flashes from Leatu Latu this year. We talked about Nick Cross. Jalen Jones, I think, has had a really solid season. So you've got some guys there that, you could look at next year is could they take another step forward? We talked about Alec Pierce, same thing. These guys are all on rookie contracts, so they're going to be inexpensive to build your team around with your vets, like Quentin Nelson, DeForest Buckner, Zaire Franklin, Michael Pittman, those guys, Jonathan Taylor. So, the Colts are going to have some work to do this offseason, certainly, but it's not a barren cupboard, and it's a team that with some of the right moves in the offseason absolutely could go ahead and be a contender next
What's
year.
your thoughts? I know I'm coming out of left field, but Mark Lewinsky, are we giving him a second consecutive attaboy after his performances thing? And what do you do with a guy like Lowe, who's in his 30s? And I know he's, on the thing, but boy, you have a veteran presence. He's not.
Yeah, you don't want to forget about Will Fries, though.
Yeah.
When Will Fries got hurt, he was playing some of the best football in the NFL for guards.
Another foundational piece, for gosh sakes.
A guy who his contract is up. He's going to be a free agent, but, could you bring him back coming off the injury? It's a pretty serious injury that he had, but he's been in the building. I've seen him around here. Walk past the training room here in Springsteen blasting. There's Will Fries in there getting some work in.
For sure.
So, and also just a good guy to have around the locker room too. Could you bring Will Fries back to maybe be a right guard next year? We'll see how that plays out in the offseason.
Hey, you mentioned it. We'll get into this in the offseason, but Dio Dangbo's another guy that's going to
be a free agent.
Will Fries. You want to? Who am I missing on that? Because we'll have plenty of time to talk about that.
I don't have it right in front of me, but Mo Alley Cox, Julian Blackman, Ryan Kelly, I think. I would have to pull that up in front of me. We got plenty of time to talk about that.
We will have plenty of time to talk about that. All right, good stuff. Obviously, a disappointment that comes in, but we're still looking at the bright skies and the blue skies of Indianapolis being, hey, let this team do what they have to do the final 3 weeks of the season and take care of business. And whether that means a playoff berth or not, you really do want to go into 2025. I'm not overlooking these playoffs, but I'm just saying on the upswing like that, and especially to get 5 humming at the rate that he needs to. So I know I'm encouraged after this. I know it's a different podcast than if we end up going and the Colts end up beating the Broncos, but I am encouraged. I'm encouraged about this team this year. I'm encouraged about this team next year with the leadership and to watching Anthony Richardson grow.
I will say this, though. Like, I don't know if right now, I like your optimism. I don't know if right now I'm feeling encouraged, but I think we can realistically look at this. Like, when you kind of remove the emotion and the negative, just, oh, God, it sucked feeling about losing that game, I think you can kind of take like a realistic look at this and say, okay, it's maybe not as bad as it seems, but right now it is okay. If you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you're feeling like, I don't want to hear these guys talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of you out there.
Sunshine and rainbows. That's fine. I get it. We'll be right here for when you're ready to come back. But right now, if you're just like, I don't want to hear this, That's fine. I get
it.
it. I get it.
We're
I get
disappointed, and we even talked about that coming up. It's like, this show today, we wanted it to be so different. So great stuff, man. Let's do this, and let's keep this thing rolling. We're going to be coming at you all off season as well. Follow him on Twitter X at JJ Stankevitz, and of course, you got the latest and greatest from Colts.com that always keeps you up to the latest as far as Colts happenings go. Okay, I just want to end on a high note. I call it "What Would JJ Do?" WWJJD. I'm switching gears on this because I found something out about you this morning that I was, I was pretty like, attaboy, JJ, way to go. You got yourself, I want you to sell the community of Colts fans out there in Indianapolis on why pickleball is such a great winter sport. By the way, coming off a huge win the other night, I think you were over at, where'd you play that one? Were you...
I was able to sub in for our PR team.
How about that?
Duo.
That's what I'm talking about.
Matt Conti and I ran the table. We went 5-0.
You're like Glowinski. We pick you right off the street, like there, sit you into the starting lineup, and watch you roll.
Like Mark Glowinski, I was training as well. Playing a little pickleball. It's great.
Go ahead, sell us. Why should everybody play, especially this winter, because there's plenty of indoor courts.
Yeah.
Why should everybody play pickleball?
It's fun.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, it's like. I like it because I was never good at tennis, so I was just like, I'll pick this up. It's super easy to get the hang of. You don't need to be really skilled at it. You just, you need to pick up a paddle and go have some fun.
I see you as a Greg Maddux type guy. If I'm making that analogy as a pitcher, he's going to pick his spots, throw a little curve on here, throw a little Scroogey on here. Is that you with the pickleball?
So, Greg Maddux is probably a little too generous for me, but I will. Okay, I am going to actually take this in a different direction because I want to share this. I know Lara occasionally on this podcast has been like, I had this really weird dream last night.
Yeah.
So I had this really weird dream last night.
Here we go.
You want to know where? Because if you've made it to this point of the podcast,
I know. Thank you, by the way.
You're a diehard. So this is where my brain went last night. I have no idea why. I legitimately had a dream that I was watching an Oakland Athletics versus Toronto Blue Jays game in probably 2002. I was wearing a Barry Zito jersey. Remember Barry Zito, big overhand curveball?
Very well.
One of my favorite pitchers growing up. But Mark Mulder was starting for the Oakland A's, and Carlos Delgado hit a 500-foot home run off of him, just a tank.
In your dream?
In my dream. I'm dreaming about Barry Zito, Mark Mulder, and Carlos Delgado.
I love it.
My brain is like, hey, you know what you need to do? You need to remember some guys. Remember those guys? And I woke up in a great mood. Thinking about, remember, and I woke up with a cold. I'm all congested. Just, my kids are yelling at me.
Great dream, though.
But, man, remember those guys? Those guys are awesome.
Where did Delgado take that shot?
Where did he take it? For some reason, it was at Shea Stadium. I think it's because I went to bed watching a highlight of Mo Vaughn hitting a tank at Shea Stadium.
Great player, yeah.
I follow his account on Instagram. That's just like old home runs.
Can I ask our?
Why are we talking about?
I have no idea. But can I ask our controlled studio audience before we say goodbye to Ava and Amanda? Can you help me with this? I don't remember my dreams. Like once or twice.
I rarely do.
Once or twice a year, I'll wake up and I'll go, wow, I had a dream, but I don't remember my dreams. Youngster, when I was young, I did. I remember dreams and stuff, but I don't.
This was so.
What does that mean about me?
Yeah.
If I have weird dreams, I remember them.
Yeah.
So,
Regular dreams, you don't remember?
Most like 99%.
Yeah.
But I guess if I'm, remembering some guys, like tomorrow I'm going to wake up and be like, I had this awesome dream about Vinny Castilla.
I will. Yeah. I'd love the off-season baseball podcast with you. Let's get out of here before it gets too late. JJ Stankevitz.
It already got too late.
It is a little bit.
Too late.
At Twitter X, you can follow him at JJ Stankevitz, and of course at Colts.com. I'm Jeffrey Gorman. Let's go. It is time. 3 games. The run starts. There's a whiteout this weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium. Go on the road to the Big Apple, and after that, right back at home. Let's do it. We got to take care of business. Most important thing, win 3 in a row, but it starts this weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium. Thanks for staying up late and watching this thing. JJ, good stuff as always. We'll talk to you all next week.